Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Gina from orchidandopal.com, and today I am back with another tutorial from the Mountain Vineyard collection that I put together with Eureka Crystal Beads. If you haven't picked up one of those collections, you can check down below underneath the video in the description section for that link. It'll take you right to it if you want to pick one up. And if you missed that unboxing, I will try to link that in the corner as well. It'll show you all the things you can expect in that collection, including the materials that you'll need to make these crystal earrings with a bugle bead bezel. The only thing not included in the collection are the jump rings and of course your beading tools, but inside you'll find the 15-0 seed beads, the 3mm bugles, and even these post earring findings. If you'd like to pick up the items individually, you can also do that, and Eureka has tons of different colors available in these materials, which means you have tons of options to choose from. We'll be making one earring together today, and then you can back up the video to make the other one. And not only that, these components could be used in so many other different ways, including as a single pendant, so feel free to experiment with how you use these. To get started though, if you're going to be making these along with me, you can trim off a comfortable length of beading thread. I'll be using the 0.006 inch diameter 6-pound Fireline and a size 11 beading needle. So once you have everything ready to go, we can jump into this tutorial. To begin, pick up 10 of your bugle beads. And then pull them down to the other end of your beading thread and leave yourself a 4 to 6 inch tail. And with your working thread side and your needle, go ahead and sew back through all 10 of those bugle beads again. And then holding on to that tail thread, pull these beads into a loop, just like that. And right at this point where the threads start to come together, I'm going to make a overhand knot just to begin to secure that thread a little bit before we weave that back in. Now with my needle, I'm going to go through one more bugle bead and then pull that. And now we're going to begin building some layers of bugle beads onto this existing row, and we'll be increasing a couple rows with 15-0s in between. First though, let's pick up a bugle bead and then sew back around the one that you're currently coming out of and pull that tight. So now you should have something like this. And we're going to sew through our next bugle bead on that original row. Pick up another one and sew back through the bugle bead we're coming out of plus the next one. Again, pull this tight. You don't want any gaps in between those beads. And just continue doing this all the way around, going around the bugle you're coming out of and sewing through the next one also. When you get to your last one, you'll just sew around that single bugle bead and pull tight. And at this point, I'm going to put a needle on my tail thread and I'm going to weave that back in a little bit just to get it out of the way for the video. You're welcome to do that now or wait till later. So I'm going to take care of mine and I'll be right back. All right, so with my thread coming out of this bugle bead that's on the inside, we can step up to the one that is right above it, and that'll have us going in the opposite direction at this point. And we're going to again build upon our rows of bugle beads by picking one up, and we'll sew through that same one that we're coming out of. Pull that really tight to pop that bugle bead in place. Now you have 3 that are stacked on top of each other right there. Then we're going to pick up a 15-0 and sew through the next bugle bead. And we're going to repeat this all the way around. So a bugle bead, go back through that same bugle bead, pull tight, pick up a 15-0, and sew through the next bugle bead that is on that second row. Bugle bead, going around, 15-0, and going through the next bugle. So keep doing that all the way around, and when you get to about your last one, we'll meet back and continue on. Once you've added on your last bugle bead in that third row plus that 15-0 that comes next, and you're coming out of your next bugle bead in the second row, that's where you can step up back through one of those newest bugles, pull tight, and we're going to continue this row in a similar manner, but this time we're going to pick up a bugle and sew back around the one we're coming out of. And this time we're going to pick up 2 15-0s and sew through the next bugle bead. Again, pick up a bugle, sew back through the one we're coming out of, pull tight, pick up 2 seed beads, and sew through the next bugle. So keep doing that all the way around, and when we get to the end of that section, we'll meet back again. All right, so I'm at the last section. I'm going to pick up the 2 seed beads, sew through the next bugle, pull, and then change directions and sew up through the next bugle bead. So we now have more than about half of our beads on for this bezel, and we're going to actually start to decrease this beadwork now. So I'm just going to start to fold these beads inward a little bit toward the center. What we're going to do on this row is again pick up a bugle bead and sew through the one that we're coming out of. Pull that tight. And then just pick up 1 seed bead and sew through the next bugle bead. So that's going to start to turn inward a little bit, which is what we want, because that's going to hug that crystal and keep it tightly in place. So just repeat this now all the way around, picking up a bugle, sewing through that same bugle bead. And this is where you will want to bend those down inward a little bit and pull extra tight. Pick up a seed bead and sew through the next bugle. So now keep doing that all the way around and we'll meet back before we start the next section. All right, so I'm at the point where I can add in that last single 15-0, going through that next bugle bead. And then I'm going to step up by sewing through the bugle bead above it. And then here is my favorite part. We get to insert the crystal. I'm going to insert that face down. And we're going to tighten these beads right around the back, just continuing to go through that new row of bugle beads that doesn't have any seed beads in between. And as you sew through those bugle beads, this will start to tighten up. Just turn that a little bit. It's going to be loose till we get it fully sewn through. And just keep pulling your thread tight as you go. And then just continue sewing around that same loop of bugle beads again to really tighten that up around the back of the crystal. And I like to line up the crystal so that this line back here is kind of centered with a bugle bead on the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to hold that in place with my fingers while I tighten these up to get that crystal to stay more in that position on its own. And as you go, just continue pulling that thread really tight around the crystal. So I went around a couple times and there is the back. There's a look at what the front should look like at this point. But we'll flip it back over. And let's follow our thread path, going back through the bugle bead above the one that we're coming out of. And then sew through the next bugle bead above that in the opposite direction. And also sew through the first 15-0 that you get to in that section of 2. Pull tight. And here you're going to be picking up a 15-0, sewing through the second one, as well as the next bugle and the first 15-0 that you get to. Pull tight. And you can see you're just adding a seed bead right there that's going to stick out above each of those groups of 2. So just keep doing that all the way around, taking your time, making sure that if you need to, you switch to a smaller, say size 12 beading needle, because you don't want to crack any beads. I'm still using a size 11, it's working fine. Sewing through that next section. So just keep doing that all the way around and we'll meet back once you get to the end of that section. And now at our last section, we just need to pick up one more 15-0 and sew through the next. Pull tight. And then you can just follow your thread path through the beads and come out of one of these central 15-0s that is at the top or bottom of the crystal. And alternately, if it is really tight, trying to get through those beads, you can turn around and go through the section next to it, which is a little bit looser. Just scooting back there through those bugles. And then I'm going to turn around, going up through the bugle next to that on that row with the 3/15-ohs. And then head up through the first two 15-ohs that you get to. I'm going to flip this over. So here is what I'll call the top of the piece. Coming out of this 15-oh there, I'm going to pick up 6 more 15-ohs. That's going to be the loop that attaches our earring finding. And I'm going to go down through those 2 seed beads on the other side, as well as sew through the next bugle. Then I'm going to turn around, heading through the bugle next to that. The seed bead, the bugle, and the seed bead. And then I'm going to turn around, go up through those 2 seed beads again. And then go through those 6 new 15-ohs to reinforce that section again. And back down into the beadwork. Now I'm just going to move over to that next row where it's a little bit looser. And you can reinforce any of these rows that you want. If you have any gaps, it's a great time to do that. Just sew back through and pull everything tight as you go. And keep going all the way around. I'm just going to reinforce this bottom bead by going around that one. And then back through the bugle bead next to it. And this also keeps us from needing to make any half-hitch knots as we're finishing up using our working thread. Since we've gone in many different directions and through additional beads, our thread will be secure. And we can simply pull this tight and trim off the excess. And for our final step, we just need to attach our post earring finding. I'm going to do that with one of these oval jump rings. So I'm going to use my pliers to twist that open gently. Then I'll loop that around the hole in the post finding. And I'll slip that underneath the seed beads. And use my pliers to close that up. And now our first earring is complete, so you can just back up the video if you need to, make your second earring, and then we can admire our work. And that is all there is to it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I want to thank you all so much for being here and joining me today. As a reminder, the link to this collection at Eureka Crystal Beads is located right down below the video, as well as the full list of materials that you need to make a pair just like this one. If you do decide to make these, I'd love to hear about it, so feel free to leave me a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel because I'd love to have you back. Be sure to hit the big thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and you can share it by using the buttons below with your other beading friends. That's all for now, but until next time, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. And as always, happy beading.